We begin this hour with breaking news out of Mexico. Officials there say 2 of the 4 Americans kidnapped last week are dead.
The governor of the region says 1 of the other Americans was wounded and the 4th is still alive. Now, this video shows the moment of the encounter. The group was shot at and abducted shortly after crossing into the northern border city on Friday. Authorities are searching for answers as to why they were targeted. CBS News correspondent Omar Villafranca joins us from Brownsville, Texas, this afternoon. Omar, what more do we know about the victims and why they were there in Mexico to begin with?
Well, as you mentioned, we know, according to Mexican officials, the governor of Tamaulipas and the attorney general of the state of Tamaulipas have said both that 2 of the 4 Americans who were seen in that video are dead. Another one is injured and another one is not injured. We're trying to figure out exactly where they are, how they were found, how they were presented either to authorities or how they were found by people in the street. We just don't know. Now, as to why they were there, CBS News has talked to family members who said that they were down there for medical procedures. And one family member told us that one of the women there was 2 men and 2 women, was coming down for what's called a Brazilian butt lift and for a tummy tuck. And for people who may not know, going south of the border is cheaper for a lot of these procedures to be done, whether it be cosmetic procedures or other elective surgeries or even dental work. It's pretty common. There's medical tourism here that people will come here from the United States and go over to Mexico to get those sort of things done. And family members are telling us that's what they were doing.
Omar, I wonder if you can give us any insight into how this information is coming out from authorities in Mexico. It seems to be a bit of a slow trickle. What can you tell us about that process?
Well, we are hearing from Mexican officials. AMLO, the president, that's Obrador, as everybody just calls him AMLO, has a press conference, and that's when the governor of Tamaulipas and the attorney general released that information out, saying that 2 of the Americans have been killed. Americans, on the American side, they're being very quiet about this, probably for operational reasons. They don't want to tip their hand on any, anything that they're doing to get them out or whatnot. So a lot of unanswered questions on the American side officially. Mexicans are basically talking. This is their land. This is the Matamoros side is their country. So they're basically telling what happened and what information they know.
Omar, the U.S., as you know, already had a travel restriction in place there in that part of Mexico. So how are people there reacting to the situation and what happened?
Well, look, we talked to a pastor here who told us that, this happens to Mexican nationals on the other side getting kidnapped all the time. But now that Americans are involved, now people are paying attention. He's saying hundreds of people are being get kidnapped over there, and it doesn't get a blip on the American media's radar at all. And the level 4 restriction that's there, the State Department puts that out. But we talk to people who say, I go there every day, every week. You have people who grew up in Matamoros but live in Brownsville, or they live in Brownsville and work in Matamoros and go back and forth every day. I mean, there's bad parts of the country in the U.S., but people still live there. They still work there. They still go there. And that's how parts of people here who live maybe on the Texas and the American side see it. They may not vacation, but if they go there, live there, work there, have an aunt or a grandma who lives over there, they're still going to go and see them. They just have to travel more cautious. And so a lot of people we talk to say they're not surprised, but there's a lot of attention because Americans were involved.
All right, Omar Villafranca reporting from the border for us. Omar, thank you. Let's turn to CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joining us now. So, Ed, what are you hearing from the White House with respect to this news?
Jerika and Elaine, good to see you. Just a little while ago, John Kirby, the National Security Council spokesman, in a already scheduled call with reporters expressing condolences for the 4 families, not necessarily explicitly confirming the death of those 2 Americans, but acknowledging the report of the Mexican governor and saying at this point that the highest priority for the United States is returning those citizens to the United States, and that's the immediate concern. Wouldn't comment further, though, out of respect for the families and their privacy as more of this is sorted out. But again, this happening just in the last 2 hours or so, and an official U.S. confirmation or statement on it is not necessarily as fast coming as you might anticipate. But they're not denying the reports by the Mexican governor. The Attorney General also spoke in the last hour about this and was asked about it at the beginning of an unrelated event. He said that for the Justice Department, at least, tackling Mexican drug cartels is a top priority. Take a listen.
Responsible for the deaths of Americans. And we are fighting as hard as possible. The DEA and the FBI are doing everything possible to dismantle and disrupt and ultimately prosecute the leaders of the cartels and the entire networks that they depend on.
And as Omar said, missing and dead Americans due to violence in Mexico may be rarer and certainly going to draw a lot more attention in this country, but it happens all the time across Mexico, especially in that one northern border state. And this is just an awful reminder, then, of the violence that continues to plague that country.
Gosh, it really is, Ed. How does this new development, though, further complicate the relationship between President Biden and the Mexican president?
Too early to say, but there's definitely going to be reaction to this in the realm of what is the United States doing to help combat the violence, and is the López Obrador administration doing enough itself to tackle what has been a systemic and decades-long problem across Mexico that transcends presidencies and different styles of government down there. Of course, you know, this is a big part of not only the drug trafficking and anti-drug policies of the Biden administration or the United States generally, but of course also one of the reasons why people try to flee the Mexico, Guatemala, Central America, other South American countries. Violence, political instability, and public institutions that can't respond to that. That is why people come to or try to get into the United States. And so all of this, just a stark and unexpected and awful reminder that it happens to Americans occasionally, it happens to Mexicans and others across Latin America all the time. And in this case, it happened despite warnings from the State Department to not visit those parts of Mexico. Even as Omar rightly points out, there are people for business or for personal reasons who go to those parts of Mexico all the time and have no problem. It is regardless a violent area.
Yeah, definitely a risk involved. Ed O'Keefe, thank you for your reporting.